There's so much beauty that comes forward as we open to our true nature and as we rest more deeply. And yet it's as if as we start to flower and blossom and we come to be more ourself, that we open to horizons that have never been seen before. And we open to parts of ourself that are our true nature, like our true nature and our unique wiring, but we haven't met these parts of us before. And so it can seem unfamiliar, and yet at the same time, so true and so enlivening. It can bring a feeling of, who am I? Right? And of course, there's the $6 million question. But it's in the knowing of the true nature as the one, the uniqueness starts to really flower. We start to come into more of the fullness of who we are. And it can seem a little unrecognizable because we're so used to being in protection, right? And so there can be a sense of, who is that? Is that okay? Why did I do that? Why did I say that? And yet at the same time, in a way, the measure is never what the mind is saying. The measure is never the mind's questioning. The measure is, how alive do you feel? How real do you feel? How joyful do you feel? How free do you feel? And it can be a sense of feeling free but held back at the same time. Almost as if to say, is this okay? And that sense of, is this okay, is because we were so often told as in our young child life that that's not okay. Like, be careful, too much emotion, too much cheekiness, too much noise, too many tears, right? And so we learnt to look elsewhere to say, is this okay? We learnt not to trust our intuitive knowing and just to be in a kind of free flow, right? And in a way, we're returning to not looking anywhere for permission, but our inner authority. We're not looking anywhere for permission, but our deep-rooted connection to Source. And so we're on the lookout. We're on the lookout for that feeling, that sense of being true, of being aligned. We're not on the lookout for how am I being received? Is this okay? Because the way that we move in life and the relational dynamics can start to shift as a result of us coming into our true nature. And as we come to our true nature, we speak about our true nature in kind of an abstract way at times, like we are the transcendent field, we are the being. And yet as we open to the abstract oneness and the unified field where we are one as love, we also open to more of our uniqueness, and our unique wiring comes online, right? And what we have to remember in that is that we are truly unique. And in a way, the whole needs your uniqueness, needs you to be fully your unique self. And it's not, let's say, a progression in time that we're moving in an evolution where it's like, I tick this box and now I'm going to become this, and then I tick this box, like climbing a ladder, right? It's much more organic than that. So even the unfolding doesn't necessarily relate or can be compared to anyone else, although there will be overlapping experiences, let's say, MEMS as part of it. But the unfolding is unique. And so it's really important not to try to map yourself to anyone else, but only to map yourself to the frequency of truth that you recognize yourself. Map yourself only to a resonance, not to a behavior or a character or experience. Not to map yourself. Let things you hear about bring you alive, but it's to only map to pure consciousness, only to map to your intuitive knowing, that you don't need permission or validation from anywhere else. And then your adventure is your wild adventure. It's about your curiosity, because only you know you. You know your quirks and your foibles and your uniqueness. You also know the beauty and glory and the gifts that you have, right? You might feel like, well, I don't know all of it, but you do know. You do know when you feel the most alive, and the unique things that you that about you that are like, we could say, like your skill set or your the things that are very natural to you, that bring you alive, or just come forward. And in a way, it's about recognizing your uniqueness and honoring your uniqueness. So often in this unfolding that can be called the spiritual journey, it's so much about letting go of everything. And yes, we are letting go of everything. We're letting go of all identities so that we can truly flower and blossom in our uniqueness. And then it can be quite fun to notice, well, what is unique? What is unique here? Because we start to open to, we could say, like the heart sankalpa, what the heart knows that you're here for. And we start to recognize, oh, okay, this is a vehicle that operates in this way. This is what I have to bring forward. This is how, let's say, my essence, nature, offers uniquely on the surface of life, right? And it's not about the uniqueness becoming an identity, but it's about recognizing and honoring, and not feeling that we need to shy away from, in the great letting go of everything unfolding, where we're releasing identity and we're releasing the sense of me and protection, because we're releasing into a unique flowering. And that unique flowering comes out of the fertile ground of the knowing of the unified field, the being one with the one, right? And yet it can feel unrecognizable. But what the sort of things that might happen are the way that you've been working, or what has been your job, starts to shift. Something different comes in, but the mind could say, oh, no, this is what I do. But it's this openness to allow something different to come forward that brings you alive, that we don't have to stay in that groove that says, no, this is who I am, this is what I do. That we're open to something else bringing us alive. And we realize that true nourishment comes when we feel aligned, when we feel alive, right? And it's the same with relationships. It's the same with the ways that we move. That we're not here to be static and held in an idea that has been maybe the way that a lot of the life has been lived, but a lot of the life can have been lived in protection and not truly allowing the fullness of who we are to blossom. And it can be surprising what wants to come forward, right? Maybe you can notice some of those things, like a creativity could come forward that has sort of always been there, a bit dormant, but you didn't really know how to use it, or you didn't really think you were good enough. And suddenly you're blossoming, and you're drawing and you're painting. And could you dare to feel like, oh, maybe I'm supposed to share these with the world, right? And but there's a unique flow that comes from the transmission when we're opening and living in the frequency, we could say, of pure creativity. So it's that being open to different streams that bring us alive and new horizons that we haven't been able to see because our evolution hasn't brought us to that viewpoint where it's like, wow, there's this whole other field of possibility that I never considered, right? And we don't have to force it or strain it or effort or push. It's just a naturalness that opens. And this is in all of the arenas of life, right? About a week ago, I was walking in the forest in my special, fairly new trail runners. And my shoes just started to run. They started to pick up speed. And I noticed, oh, what's happening? She's running. She's off of the big white sofa and she's running. What on earth is going on? Like, and suddenly every day she's out there in the forest and she's running. She's all about it, all about running now. Well, maybe jogging is probably closer to the truth, but she's definitely moving at a speed of light that hasn't happened for a number of years. So, okay, fantastic, right? And this is what I mean in the simplicity of that we have no idea the horizons that might open. And it can seem unfamiliar and it could be like, oh no, I don't do that, and I don't want to, damage my knees, and I don't want to this. But it's like, just let the shoes run if they want to run, right? They're made for running. That's what they're up to. So just know that as we're opening, so much of our focus can be on kind of trying to manage the seeming stresses. We've been speaking and pointing a lot to this just deep resting. And this deep resting is, yes, it's resting in the being, just as we've always spoken of. It's a deep resting in the being, in the stillness, in the silence. But it's also an invitation that's a resting that isn't a doing, it's not a meditating. It's just being. It's a resting in the being. Because what's so important is that to rest in the being isn't to visit a state, right? It's not to visit a place and then you come out of that, or then now I'm in the being and now I'm out of the being, right? It's this recognition that underneath the play of experience of what we come in and out of is a constant. And what we're really opening to the recognition of is that the constant is constant. So the being, the field, is constant. And in a way, we feels like we drop in and out of it. But the truth is that we're always the constant, we're always the being, and we actually pop into the mind, in and out of the mind, right? So it's a complete about turn to the way that we think, like, oh, I'm the mind, I'm the person, and I drop into the being. It's like, no, you're the being, and you pop sometimes into the mind. But you are the being. That is your true nature, your true identity is in God and glory, is in the resting. And in the resting here now, it's like we drop into, recognize, right? Sometimes we speak of that being like a sanctuary or a refuge. And it is really this sense, that can be spoken of taking refuge in the glory, just resting in what is true. And it's this ability to recognize that this field of being goes nowhere. It goes nowhere. And yet we're used to habitually dwelling in the mind and in this realm of fix it, change it, do it, work it, try, effort, criticize, judge, doubt, be in guilt and shame. We're used to being in this kind of cloud. And in a way, it's about knowing that if you either just pop your head up above the clouds or you sink right in below the clouds, that you're home. You're home in yourself. You're just resting here, right? So there's no difference between being in the being and resting, but it's this recognition that this resting deepens and deepens and deepens, because that sense of, well, I'm resting, but now I've got to do this. It deepens and deepens so that it shifts from always resting. And actually there's nothing to do because life is living itself. And we could say in a way that doing happens, but doing that happens is very different from the protective idea of controlling where I need to do, right? That we're allowing the flow of life. And so then there's always a sense of resting. And if we feel like the frequency amps itself up into a fear or anxiety or a stress, we can just rest here, just rest. And all that's being asked here is to rest and just to receive the amped up frequency charge in the field. You don't have to work it out. You don't have to process it. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to understand it. Just in the resting, the intelligence recalibrates. So it's like when the frequency charge seems like it amps itself up, just rest, and just, it's like infusing here, soaking here. Because as we rest, it's like the intelligence starts to bring forward a clearer seeing. It starts to bring insight and revelation. So just noticing in this moment, the resting. It's a deep relaxation and just being here with all that is here. And when we just rest here and we open to this moment, it's like we can look around as awareness and see, okay, there's some thoughts, there's some sensations, some feelings. I locate myself, orient myself here in this environment. I take a look around and I orient myself here. And I find the point. I find myself here. And as I rest and as I find myself here, oh, I start to find myself everywhere. I just drop into the field of presence. And the sense of me and my presence drops into the field of the presence. And the resting. And great glory, here I am. Here I am. And then we could say sometimes the sense of this, the practice of the presence of God, right? That here in the presence field, in the resting, that we open to just be infused with the presence of God and glory. That we're sharing this presence field with what God is. And so the idea of me can fall into the embrace and the holding of God and glory. That I don't need to do anything. And here we speak of the natural activation in the resting of the frequency of the child of God, where we know our belonging and we're not trying to hold on to control. And we're not trying to hold on to identities. We're just in such an open willingness to just be in the embrace of God and glory, to let go into the pure consciousness, let go into the field of intelligence that knows. And that all that is being invited here is that we be here, just be here. And everything is welcome. Everything is included. Nothing needs to change. And there's an alchemy that happens in the nervous system where when everything is truly welcomed into the frequency of love and openness, the discordance starts to untangle and release itself from the bind of separation and division, and in ways that the mind could never imagine. And we start to meet ourselves more deeply, meet the one self, but we also start to meet the uniqueness, the beauty, the grace of who we are as we come to open to more freedom, parts of us that have been suppressed and hidden, particularly our unique expression. And we could say there will be periods where more of our emotionality will come forward because it's been suppressed, right? Whatever's been suppressed and repressed will come forward, but also will come forward the unique gifts and beauty that we are and that we have. And it doesn't matter where we are in our life trajectory, in the play of the human, let's say in human years, how many we have accumulated, it doesn't matter, because now is the moment for that uniqueness to flower, where we start to come into this sense of rootedness when we're connected to Source, where we're connected to this true inner authority and autonomy. And we recognize that autonomy is not an identity, it's not a protection. It's an inner knowing that comes in connection to Source, where we're being resourced, and we recognize that life is just living here at this point and expressing here at the point, and it has a unique and perfectly beautiful way of expressing. And we, in a way, we stop trying to fit ourselves into a worldly perspective where we're trying to belong, or we're trying to make money, or we're trying to be seen, or we're comparing or competing or trying to measure up to worldly ideas of success. We start to realize that actually we're not here to align with a world that is dysfunctional and discordant. We're here to actually be the change. We're here to be a more refined frequency of ourselves than we ever have been, and to actually start to offer our essence, our frequency as our blessing, as a field of blessing. That the first and most important part of this unfolding is that the essence, just your frequency is everything, right? And it's out of resting in this more refined frequency, the uniqueness starts to flow, and the recalibrations start to deepen and hone, and we're being upgraded multidimensionally. We're having our biology, our cells, our glands, our brain, our wiring. We're having our consciousness upgraded. We're having the subtle body upgraded. We're having a light body created, right? And we're coming to be able to live as a light body, as a body of light, and not as a density, right? So there's so much upgrading and shifting that is happening in this process, and there's no doing involved in that. It's a natural intelligence. But as this happens, it brings all sorts of quirky things into the sense of the human life. It can bring body issues and aches and pains and discordance and heat and different kind of kriyas. And it can bring, on the level of purification, it can bring body symptoms. Purification is happening. And if we're in this sense of the me as the mind body, separate and divided, we can get preoccupied with trying to fix the symptoms, right? Instead of trusting that whatever's happening is some kind of upgrading and recalibration and purification that is necessary for our evolution in the big picture, our soul evolution, our evolution of the soul to the universal, into God and glory, into the divine nature. Mm-hmm. So as we rest and as we gather, these recalibrations are taking place. They're constantly taking place. And yet in the resting, there's like an openness that allows the recalibrations to happen. Even in the world of neuroscience, it's being recognized that for all the action, it's in the resting that the alchemy happens. It's in the resting, in the orienting yourself, in yourself. So resting in the being, orienting yourself here now, orienting yourself in the frequency of the child of God and glory, and not in the ideas of who I need to be and what I need to do. And yet the unique flowering will bring the flow of life, fully engaged life, fully engaged, in fact, more engaged, because it's engaged joyfully, it's engaged creatively, it's engaged intelligently. Mm-hmm.